All right. Your ọ̀gbẹ́ni mo ní kó stay online ó nìyẹn máa ń afternoon ti tó ni.
Power on.
Get to left of government. The only poor men even have the time, energy, and commitment to teach others. And Kenya way to unlock something in God than exactly time to their life.
So listen to this. There is a saying in Bulgaria which is roughly translated to great quality doesn't require much effort. Well, Dimitar Berbatov believed better. We're talking about a man who seemed to just coast around for most matches, waiting for the ball to casually land on his feet. But the thing is, when the ball got to him, oh my god, it was tremendous every single time because it was a luxury striker. He cared about winning, sure, but if possible, he insisted on doing it in the most beautiful way possible. When they asked him about his play style, he quickly replied, "Those without beauty and grace in them are powerless to win a heart." And win a heart he did. As controversial as he was, Berbatov inevitably became a cult hero. Not even being chased down by the mafia, being the victim of two kidnapping attempts, or being outcasted by Sir Alex Ferguson was enough to stop him. No matter what, every time he got to the pitch, it seemed as though violins should be playing. Being chased down by the mafia, being the victim of two kidnapping attempts, or being outcasted by Sir Alex Ferguson was enough to stop him. No matter what, every time he got to the pitch, it seemed as though violins should be playing in the background. His touch was so delicate, so fine, one of his coaches would say, everything he plucked out of the sky seemed to die on his toe. But funny enough, as beautiful and poetic as it all may sound, it all came to be in the middle of a black and white concrete jungle in Bulgaria, where little Dimitar first began compulsively practicing his touch with an inflated pig's bladder and then a basketball. Every evening, throwing it up in the air and then trying to control it on his foot. He did that every single day for years. We're talking thousands and thousands of attempts. Think about it. That mentality, added to the fact that his dad was a former top-flight footballer while his mom was a semi-pro handball player, Berbatov just had to be a prodigy. All he needed was some inspiration. And so, after witnessing Stoichkov take Bulgaria to a fourth-place finish in the World Cup, he decided he had to follow his footsteps. But he didn't want to play like him, because his idols were very different from Stoichkov. They were Alan Shearer and Marco van Basten. One he admired for his no-nonsense approach and eye for goal, and the other for his elegance. Mix the two together, and you get Dimitar Berbatov, a vintage, ruthless penalty box predator, but also a modern, fine-touched, creative threat. A one-of-a-kind player who at 18 years old joined his first club CSKA Sofia in return for just 22 pairs of boots and 50 footballs. That's what you call a party. And over his time at CSKA, he grew exponentially. 6 goals in his first year, 16 in the second, then in his third season, in just 2 games versus Tiraspol in the UEFA Cup, he scored 7. By the time December came, he was up to 16 in all competitions, despite having played just 15 matches. But ironically, it was already becoming especially controversial. While his own fans began booing him, blaming the 19-year-old for the fact he were on top of the league, others seemed to be in love with him, maybe a bit too much. As a few months into the season, Berbatov left the training grounds in the middle of the day to get something to eat when he was approached by a black car. Out of the car came a friend of the family asking him to come with him. Berbatov, still a naive young man, got into the car and was then dropped off at a restaurant. He goes inside and there's no one there except one guy having lunch, surrounded by a bunch of tough-looking men. He was about to sit down with the Bulgarian mafia. The man in front of him was Georgi Ilyev, coincidentally the owner of Levski Kyustendil. And as per usual, he made Berbatov an offer he couldn't refuse. He wanted him to leave Sofia and play for his team instead. As one of Berbatov's relatives would say, they would rather fish him than have him play for another club. But thankfully for him, after much persuasion, they allowed him to call his father, who quickly understood what was happening and got Pavlov, the owner of CSKA, to get in contact and get them to leave the boy alone. I guess it could sound like an underwhelming end to the story, but I guess something that maybe will give you an idea of how serious it was. Both Pavlov and Ilyev were dead in a matter of years. Because of that, you're asking, sniper assassination. Yeah, I'm not joking. Berbatov never even told his family what they did to him that day. But one thing became clear. The moment he got out of there, Berbatov decided to get out of Bulgaria. And with Leverkusen taking him under their wing and allowing him to join their golden generation with Lucius Alberto and Balak, Berbatov himself said he felt like the luckiest boy in the world. And back then, he didn't even realize they were a year away from making history. 6 months later, Berbatov debuted with a hat-trick in a friendly against DC United and earned himself a place in the team as a rotation player, then scoring 15 goals in 13 starts right up till the 31st match day of the season. At that point, Leverkusen sat top of the Bundesliga with 4 points to spare. In the cup, they had made it to the final with Berbatov scoring 5 goals in 5 matches on his way there, and even more impressively, in the Champions League, they had beaten Juventus, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man United, making it to the final. Leverkusen, who in their history had never even won the league and had only one cup title to their name, were now just a few matches away from the treble. If it were to happen, it would be one of the greatest achievements in the history of the sport. But then, in the league, they failed to win any of their next 3 matches and watched as Dortmund snatch the title right out of their hands. Then, to make it all worse, they lost the final of the German Cup to Schalke, and suddenly, their only hope left was in the league, they failed to win any of their next 3 matches and watched as Dortmund snatch the title right out of their hands. Then, to make it all worse, they lost the final of the German Cup to Schalke, and suddenly, their only hope left. Then, in the league, they failed to win any of their next 3 matches and watched as Dortmund snatch the title right out of their hands. Then, to make it all worse, they lost the final of the German Cup to Schalke, and suddenly their only hope left was the Champions League. Between them and the trophy stood the biggest barrier of all, Blanche Galacticos. Berbatov himself admitted he was so mesmerized just looking at them in the tunnel that despite being taller than him, looking at Fernando Hierro, he felt like he was looking at a mountain. Then, halfway into the match, as he witnessed Zidane score one of the greatest goals of all time to put Real in front, Berbatov, a fellow football artist, was hit with that same emotion once more. As he said, "I wanted to applaud, but I knew I couldn't." Still, this defeat scarred Berbatov. He felt he owed something to the fans. He wanted to break the curse of Bayern Leverkusen. In his own words, he wanted to become the Maradona of Leverkusen. But then, Ballack and Zerouberto both left for Bayern, and the team shocked the country by going on a disastrous season that had them below the relegation line with 2 games left. But even more impressive than that was how quickly they got back on top of their game, finishing the next season just 9 points off the title, much thanks to Berbatov, who closed out the league season with a streak of 13 goals and 8 assists in just 18 matches. Truly world-class numbers. From there on out, he kept pulling these same kinds of stats, but the results weren't as encouraging, never breaking into the top 4, and suddenly, with the likes of Bayern, Atletico, Man United, and Liverpool knocking on his door, the Maradona of Leverkusen began to reconsider his own plan, and eventually caved in. But what shocked everyone was that Berbatov picked Tottenham. And I really gotta make a point to say this, back then, they weren't what they are today. It had been over 50 years since they last stepped foot in the Champions League, and their average placement in the league over the last 15 years was the 11th. But oddly enough, despite all of this, the move actually sort of worked out for Berbatov. He struck up an incredible partnership with Robbie Keane. Not only were the two pretty much telepathic, but Keane completely made up for Berbatov's shortcomings. As he himself would say, Robbie ran all over the pitch so that I could run in my head. And so together they sent Tottenham towards a level they hadn't experienced in ages, with Berbatov pulling off an incredible 38 goals and assists in his first season, averaging 1 every 102 minutes, taking Tottenham's Player of the Year award, getting into the league's team of the season, and earning a nomination to the Ballon d'Or, getting Spurs to a 5th place finish and setting the UEFA Cup ablaze with an incredible run of 10 goals and assists in just 9 matches. Had it not been for Tottenham's leaky defense, who knows what they could have won that season, but still, in his second year, Berbatov took them to what would be their last trophy to this very day, scoring a decisive goal in the final to hand Tottenham the League Cup. Once again, Berbatov felt like he was living a fairy tale, but then the doubts began creeping in. After all, he was already 28 years old. If he was to make a move, it would have to come now. And of course, Sir Alex swooped in with perfect timing, telling the papers he planned to sign Berbatov, causing trouble between the club and the player, who would soon request to be left out of the team, saying he couldn't focus on his game in the middle of this media storm. And before you knew it, Berbatov was landing in Manchester, hoping to join Manchester City. But that's when Sir Alex once more defied the odds, surprising him in the airport and instead bringing him over to Old Trafford, picking his brain for a few hours and eventually securing his signing for £31 million with just minutes left before the transfer market deadline. However, once again, this move seemed like a strange decision. United had Tevez, Rooney, and Cristiano Ronaldo up front. They were the greatest attacking trio in the world, one of the best ever, honestly. And all of that came from the fact they were lightning quick. So, where exactly would sluggish Berbatov fit in? Well, the answer is simple. For a while, he just didn't. There were moments of brilliance, and he did make it to the Champions League final, even if he played a small role in that campaign. But overall, the criticism and the claims he was just lazy were the loudest. Even in his second season, with Tevez and Ronaldo gone from the club, he still didn't quite manage to blow anyone away. Let's be fair, it clearly didn't help that he started the season by being threatened with another kidnapping. Berbatov was just going on with his life when his mother called him, claiming she had been approached by the Bulgarian mafia who requested £500,000 in return for protection. Then threatening Berbatov's wife and daughter once she refused. The player, aware of what would come next, began contacting everyone he could, but unfortunately for him, he was quickly advised not to call the authorities, as the Bulgarian Internal Affairs Ministry was likely in on the kidnapping scheme. So with no options left, he asked Sir Alex himself to lend him his private jet and fled to Bulgaria in order to get his relatives somewhere safe. But not before taking a detour and facing the mafia by himself. Again, not much is known of what happened there, aside from the fact that his family never got hurt and that he also never paid them a dime. Still, among all of this, Sir Alex, so empathetic with his struggles, began getting more and more frustrated. In fact, it was only thanks to second coach René Mullenstein that we got to see Berbatov in his prime. The Dutch saw something Sir Alex couldn't. He once even told him Berbatov wasn't actually a footballer, he was an artist who happened to wear football boots. It was actually a conversation between Mullenstein and Berbatov that got him in the headspace he needed in order to succeed. You see, Berbatov often got upset the team didn't play to his tune, so Mullenstein told him, "You're like the best pianists in the world. But you see, those guys over there in the training pitch, they're the world's greatest orchestra, and they have a maestro who worked very hard to get them to play like this. The only difference is that you play at a different tempo, match theirs, and you'll win everything." And against all odds, following this turbulent year in 2010-2011 at 30 years of age, the player Fergie would eventually compared to Cantona finally found his place in the team. He started the year with 7 goals in 6 matches, all culminating in a clutch hat-trick against Liverpool, the first from a Man United player in over 64 years, one of the greatest Premier League performances ever, and one which included an overhead kick that was a goal of the season contender. And that was not even his best performance of the season. That would be his 5-goal demolition against Blackburn Rovers, which meant Berbatov was just the 4th ever player in history to get 5 goals in a Premier League match, and the first ever foreign player to accomplish this. In that season, despite frequently not being afforded the 90 minutes, much thanks to these moments of genius I have mentioned, Berbatov still sealed his spot as the Premier League's top scorer with 20 goals and 4 assists in just 2,200 minutes of football. No wonder United took the league trophy and Berbatov a place in the league's team of the season. No matter what you may want to say about his performances, Berbatov had been a difference maker. You'd expect Sir Alex to rely on him for the biggest of matches. He was a Premier League top scorer. He deserved that kind of responsibility. But then, when United made it to the Champions League final once again, leaving Berbatov on the brink of what could have been his crowning moment, Sir Alex made a decision that completely changed the course of his career. I know you expect me to tell you that he benched him, but it was worse. He wasn't even called up. On the greatest season of his career, with the 3rd chance at finally taking the biggest trophy of all, Berbatov wasn't even given the chance and watched from home as United lost the match. This was a reflection of his status in the team. No matter his achievements, he had an awkward role. Still, despite all of this, despite clearly being hurt by Ferguson's decision, he stayed at the club. But that only made it worse, because that final was the first step towards the new playing style Ferguson wanted to implement. He wanted them to be quicker than ever, and Berbatov was clearly out of place. Berbatov was a vintage footballer, born a decade or two too late. A year after the final, he had only played 12 more league games for United, and so Ferguson told him he wouldn't count on him for the following season. It shouldn't be surprising to anyone that he left without even saying goodbye to his coach. Though that wouldn't be the last time he'd meet Sir Alex. Despite links to Bayern, Juventus, Fiorentina, and even a possible comeback to Tottenham, in the end, at the request of his old coach Martin Jol, he instead opted for a quiet time at Ford. Then came Monaco and some time in Greece and India before Berbatov called it quits and began working on his autobiography. It took a lot of guts to confront him again, but once the book was done, he went to Ferguson and asked him if he could write the foreword. To his surprise, he said yes without thinking twice. A few weeks later, the manuscript arrived, and Berbatov couldn't believe his eyes. In the text, Ferguson apologized for depriving him of his crowning moment, admitted he should have called him up for the final, and like many others, left the question hanging. What would have happened if Berbatov was there?
The school bullies and ballet defined his career. His tricks won the hearts of the audience with their uniqueness, and the bare butt has become iconic on the big screen. Jean-Claude Van Damme is a 1990s action film star who built an extraordinary film career. What did the actor do to save his films from oblivion? Why did his filming partners hate him? And how did he personally drown his career? Welcome to Biographer Express. Today, we will talk about his career's ups and downs.
I told you to stay online. I just said it now. Stay online. Just 2 minutes ago. Just 30 minutes ago. And 2 minutes later, I put the thing on and you're not there.
Jean-Claude Camille Francois von Varenberg, better known under the pseudonym Van Damme, is a three-time European champion in karate and kickboxing. He lost only 2 fights out of 55. Sounds impressive. And it all started after 5 years of ballet classes when his father took Jean-Claude to martial arts school. At that time, he was a flimsy kid with big glasses, so the boy was offended by his peers. So the parents wanted him to be able to protect himself. Much later, thanks to martial arts and ballet stretching, the famous split and roundhouse kick appeared, which became Van Damme's famous tricks. It was rumored that in 1981, the British film star Jacqueline Bisset advised him to come to Hollywood. When the guy arrived overseas, she quickly forgot her promises to help him. America. However, the circumstance did not cool him down. It forced him to make his way to glory along a winding path. After working as a pizza delivery boy, driver, and waiter, Van Damme was lucky to get a job as a bouncer at the Chuck Norris Sports Club. There, he befriended the legendary actor and even became his sparring partner. Norris allowed Van Damme to try his hand at a new craft and attached the guy as a stuntman in the film Missing in Action. Directors noted Jean-Claude, and in 1984, he starred in the film Monaco Forever. It was the same inconspicuous role of a karateka as in Missing in Action. However, there was progress since his first film, The Woman Between the Dog and the Wolf, 1979, where he played the role of a viewer in the cinema. The stubborn Belgian continued to try his luck in various film studios. So, in 1987, he was on the set of Predator. Numerous rumors and legends are associated with the film about the fact that Francois never starred in it. According to the first not-so-plausible version, Van Damme was unsuitable in height for acting with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold was too tall to make a 6-foot predator look intimidating against his background. According to another version, which Jesse Ventura insisted on, in 1987, he was on the set of Predator. Numerous rumors and legends are associated with the film about the fact that Francois never starred in it. According to the first not so plausible version, Van Damme was unsuitable in height for acting with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold was too tall to make a 6-foot predator look intimidating against his background. According to another version, which Jesse Ventura insisted on, the Belgian went too far with blows and a scandal erupted. Well, in the third most plausible theory, Van Damme was angry because of the uncomfortable predator costume. In addition, the Scarecrow had a mask that was worn on the head and covered his beautiful face. The future sex symbol could not bear such a terrible catch. He became angry at all those inconveniences and left the project. The first full-fledged role of Van Damme is the role of karateka Ivan Krasinski in the 1986 film No Retreat, No Surrender. An unknown actor was finally noticed, and the role of the main antagonist was most welcome for him. The actors were allowed to improvise on the set, as the script was not finished. And for such an ambitious guy, such a turn was a gift of fate. Jean-Claude did what he did best, bludgeoned everyone. The karate champion did not count the hits, so he overfulfilled the norm. In particular, his partners on the set, Timothy D. Baker and Peter Cunningham, suffered. The reckless Belgian thrashed Cunningham in the ring like a punching bag, and there were always a few dozen extra punches for Baker. Later, Baker sued Van Damme for violent behavior, claiming that he continued to beat him despite the director's screams.
I think my leg is broken.
By that time, the Belgian was already responsible in court for injuring Jackson Pinckney on the set of Cyborg. During the No Retreat, No Surrender filming, the Belgian worked practically for food. Someone constantly pushed his car so they could start and go. The film did not win much enthusiasm, but it paid off at the box office. And the aggressive karateka had a chance to another legendary film, Bloodsport, from which his ascent to Hollywood Olympus began. Francois got into the film Bloodsport thanks to his persistence, the siege of the Cannon studio, and his acquaintance with producer Menahem Golan. The problematic scenario, which was gathering dust at the studio, was decided to be corrected for the Belgian. The low budget of $1.5 million did not bode well. The test team didn't rate the film. It would have been buried in the studio's archives forever, but the actor could save the situation. How? More about that later. In the meantime, write in the comments your favorite Jean-Claude film. Meanwhile, Van Damme continued his bad boy role with his next film, Black Eagle. As in previous projects, he did not give up the practice of beating his film partners. He infuriated the actor Sho Kosugi with his precise blows to all body parts, after which Kosugi responded in kind. As a result, the actors had to be pulled apart in different directions. In addition, the obstinate Belgian considered it beneath his dignity to die at the hands of the hero Kosugi, as was written in the original version. For some reason, the scriptwriters considered his claims legitimate and let the hero die under the boat propeller. A frankly weak third-rate fighter was dragging the ambitious Francois to the bottom. There, Van Damme remembered Bloodsport and saw the potential in a forgotten film, but it needed some editing. The future star convinced the studio to rely on his editorial vision and skills. Oddly enough, Van Damme managed to make it in an acceptable way that satisfied the film bosses. Finally, in 1988, the film was carefully released to the screen.
Can you hear me? If you can hear me, let me know. It's not a group. Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. I just need you to. I just need to know if you can hear me. I can see you have joined now. So if you are going to be able to hear me, then you should be hear me. You should hear me now. How clear is it? Okay, so can you see my screen? Let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, so can you hear me? I want to make sure you can see my screen and that you can hear me at the same time. Just comment in the YouTube section, in the YouTube comment section. Hello, ma. All right. Okay. Okay, so I'm guessing you can also hear me. At least you should have. I didn't even mute it. So you should have heard my this thing now. You should have heard the time my phone rang. Oh, this stuff is slow. Hi. So you are just hearing me now. Wow. As well. That's what I just wanted to confirm. Hello?
Hello, have you sent it?
Yes, now check this woman has not seen
But not till
it.
Okay,
I
well,
said 5-1.
okay, I see.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Ṣé ọ̀rẹ́ àná náà gbà lórí 5 lọ yẹ́ kọ́?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
No.